Good morning, Olivia. Morning, Delia.
Morning, Cindy.
It's early.
Yes, it is. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm doing okay.
Morning, Judah.
Good morning. I'm gonna keep my camera off while I finish my oatmeal.
Fair enough. Oatmeal sounds good on this morning. It's drizzly outside.
Yeah, it's my favorite breakfast.
Yeah.
I make it unhealthy. I put Nutella and peanut butter in mine. It makes it like a chocolatey oatmeal cookie.
Well, that's protein, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
I added a banana today, so I guess that's healthy.
yeah. Welcome, Kelly. Glad you could make it.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a rush in the rain, but otherwise it was.
Yeah. You didn't run into anybody, did you?
I didn't run into anybody.
Is Hannah driving yet?
God, no.
Okay.
Yeah, no, she did turn 16, but she's a little antsy about it, and I'm a little antsy about it. And with the pandemic, it was going to have to be me teaching her to drive, and we've decided that somebody else should be the adult
Okay.
with her.
Fair enough.
So we don't play off our mutual anxieties. So we don't, so probably over the summer.
Okay. Morning, Chris.
Good morning.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll wait on a couple more.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Judah's co-worker is with us this morning.
Yes, always here.
It's good to have
Meeting.
support from your co-workers.
Yeah. I was in a meeting yesterday. It was like the social with students who were applying to our Honors Academy. And so I'm in this room with students and Atticus is in my lap and his little paws just reaching up, like just resting right here.
Oh,
Completely distracting.
yes. But I'm sure everybody loved it.
Mhm.
Good morning, Aaron, Michael
Good
Lee,
morning.
Vicente, Dr.
Morning.
Rayleigh.
Good morning.
Thank you all for making it early today. I've got a meeting at 10 that wasn't scheduled through the district, so didn't have much choice on that. So I appreciate your going out of your way to make time for us today. So let me make sure that we do have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And Dr. Garza and Dr. Sanchez will not be with us today. They let me know that they couldn't make it. And Kathy will be a little late. So let Caroline in. Morning, Caroline.
Morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I completely forgot that this was Fiesta holiday. So when my son came home from school yesterday, he's like, I don't go to school tomorrow. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
yeah. So lockdown.
it happens.
So how are you guys doing?
For it being 8:30 in the morning, I'm here.
I hear that, man. I after all these years, you'd think I'd be a morning person, that I'd just learn, but no.
No.
It almost looks like Erin and I got up extra early to coordinate our outfit, which I'm gonna
Yes.
Look
pretend
at
we did.
y'all.
And you two are right next to each other in my Zoom, so it's like twinsies.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the EFC Early Edition. We've got some ad hoc updates to cover today. We've got the approval of the notes from last time. We do not have any recommendation updates this week. I'm expecting in a couple of weeks we will have 2, if not 3, but probably 2. There is no Board of Trustees report or presentation because I just presented on Tuesday and I haven't gotten any updates since then, so there's nothing to present. And then we need to talk about the survey. So I wanted to go over the agenda. I want to pull up and look at your faces rather than the agenda while we go over these, so I'll switch back and forth. But Kelly, if you wouldn't, approval of notes. Sorry, I'm ready to hear what everybody's working on. Let me get to the meeting business at hand. So these are the notes from April the 9th. We approved the notes from the 26th. Now, the reason I highlighted the stuff in yellow was because for attendees, I am unsure of the protocol of listing just the members or listing everyone that attends. Does anybody know the proper protocol for that?
I don't know. I know at Faculty Senate, we usually do like senators in attendance and then like faculty in attendance or guest in attendance. And so like you could separate it out that way, like, EFC members in attendance and then guest.
Okay.
I don't know if it matters.
I think that's good to show that it's a guest just for anyone looking back on it, but we do the same thing.
Okay. So I'll make those corrections later. Tell me if I need to scroll.
I'm ready for scrolling. I don't know if anyone else is. Okay.
I'll just scroll to there.
You can scroll for me.
Looks good to me so far. I'm ready for scrolling.
Okay.
Oops, what language was I getting?
I think that was for the PPAC procedure.
Oh, right. We need to get the final-ish copy, the most final copy from Ross, because we're waiting on that other half.
Okay.
And I know that it's in a sentence above, but I just don't want to leave our notes with something I'm promising to do, but have yet to do. So I would like to vote to just take that sentence off there, that I'll get actual language, since we reference the procedures 2 sentences above.
Ready for scroll?
Mhm.
Looking good to me. I'm ready for scrolling. I'd like to make a motion to approve these minutes.
Second.
Any objections? We have consensus. Okay. So let's see here. So next we've got the ad hoc committee updates. We're going to start off with faculty evaluation and systems. So Kelly, and then the tenure, and then the mentoring.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to take this off of share.
Yeah, thank you. I like to see faces too.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, so good news. We seem to have our forms all complete, at least content complete. Some things need to be prettied up, but otherwise content has been agreed upon by the committee. People seem, probably 90% happy as a general rule. So I think we did all right. Nobody got everything, but everybody got something. And right now we're just formalizing, we're getting ready to prepare the report and formalizing a few procedural things that we still haven't quite come to agreement on. Those things are, as I've mentioned before, we're still trying to decide on the frequency. And we're getting closer there. What I'm guessing is going to happen is it's going to be every year up to either tenure or year 6, whichever that ends up being, and then every 2 years thereafter. There's still a small push for doing a 3-year process for people who are full professors, but I'm pretty sure that's going to wither on the vine, but we'll see. I wouldn't mind that one, but then again, I'm not wedded to it either. The other thing that we are working out is like a timeline process, like this is due here, this is due here, this is, so that we know when things are due for those things. So it's just like small procedural things, but things that definitely have to be ironed out a little bit better before we can present a full report. Am I missing anything? I don't see, oh, Ruby's, oh no, Ruby is here. There's Ruby.
Yeah, I'm here.
My co-chair, my co-chair.
Yeah, I think Kelly got, that's basically it. There's nothing else new. We're just trying to decide, and I guess we haven't gotten everyone's opinion on the frequency, right, Kelly? Only a few people.
Yeah, and then there's a little bit of difference of opinion between, some people would like it to be, you do, on the years you're evaluated, you do all the things, and on the years you're not evaluated, you do none of the things. And some people think that every year you should do a self-eval and a chair eval. So it's just kind of working through those differences and deciding what the best process will be. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned this, and Aaron and Judah might mention it, but we also met with them last week, and that resulted in a small change in the self-evaluation. It's very, I think it's small, which was adding a seventh number, a seventh little piece there, where it's about faculty development. Which of the 7 competencies have you most developed in this past year? And there's like a little link to the competencies and how, and then it does specifically say in there also wording that this might be information you've addressed previously in this evaluation, or it might be new information, so that people understand that they don't need to come up with some big extra, but just so that we show that it is definitely tied.
Yeah, we wanted to have, you know, the evaluation, development, and whatever we come up with for tenure to work together. So the 7 faculty competencies that are part of faculty development currently only live in that world. So we want it to be referenced in the evaluation so that it's like, hey, how are you doing addressing those 7 faculty competencies? And then in our criteria for tenure, those are part of the criteria for tenure, you know, and that will be evidenced by, of course, your transcript for, you know, faculty development and your evaluation self-reporting in that particular piece. So yeah, part of our effort. Additionally, there was one other thing we were talking about, and I don't quite recall how we left it, but the artifacts that are required.
Yes, that's just what I was about to say. I forgot to talk about that. I forgot. Thank you, Aaron. The other thing that we're still working out the logistics of, and there's a couple of things that kind of need to be ironed out, is we're talking about how the first 6 years that part of the evaluation piece will be building in artifacts that lead towards your tenure dossier. And then after that, after you've hit 6 years or tenure, whichever ends up being the case for us, you would only be required to include artifacts in your dossier beyond the evaluations if you're on some sort of improvement plan that requires those documents. So if something's occurred where we're kind of doing a little more check-in, then that would be the other way. Or if you're going up for promotion.
Yeah, that's the thing. So if you're going up for promotion, you're going up for tenure, or you're on, you know, an improvement plan, the need for, well, just promotion and tenure, dossier, right? Currently, as it stands in Faculty 180, it's like you're preparing a dossier every year, which is one of the primary beefs. Now, I don't think any of us are against, you know, documentation and evidence. However, the feeling that it's sort of doing the whole thing every year is unnecessarily like cumbersome and doesn't really tell the story year by year that we need it to tell anyway. So I think we need documentation. I mean, we need to see some things. So the question was, can it be scaled back to the critical pieces for non-promotion, non-tenure evaluation cycles?
Right. The evaluations would serve as documentation. And if people wanted more evidence for some reason, they could ask for it, but that would be the expectation.
So is
because
that,
they've already
is that
proven
written in there?
themselves.
So, I mean, how is that expressed?
Well, we're still, that's the piece we're still working on. Those are
still
part of the
working on
logistics
that.
We're trying to figure out the wording for it, because what we want to make sure is that it doesn't become something that we're trying to get a little prescriptive without being overly prescriptive, and trying to find that space is not super easy.
Well, I
where
think we
people
could
know
leave it
that
with the
certain
chairs,
things are
right?
expected. of them. But that's the thing, is that we have some departments, like I know mine, when I was going through, we literally had every last piece of anything we ever did put in those dossiers, which is burdensome for administrators to look through and doesn't really give a good, it starts becoming hard to know what's important. It's like, it's like if you never weed out a library collection, then, like everything's just kind of there and it's insane. Sorry, I realize not everybody here's a librarian, so that probably doesn't land. But anyways, but the idea that you want to, have your, or merchandising or whatever, you want to have your big stuff up there and ready to look at, but not every last email you've sent, or, someone emailed back, thank you, and you put that in your dossier is a little excessive. So we're trying to find a way to say like a kind of a guide to what should be in there without getting so prescriptive that it doesn't work for everybody. Does that make sense?
There's a question in the chat that says, what do you mean that the evaluation can be used as evidence?
Yeah, I guess, is it like the self-evaluation itself are we suggesting that if you're not up for promotion or tenure, that is on its own enough, or would you still have to accompany it with a syllabus or an assignment or some sort of?
No, we're saying that if you, once you're tenured, your documentation is your evaluations, unless you're going up for promotion or you are on some sort of improvement plan, we are going to say that you've earned the trust that what's in your evaluation is accurate.
So what you're suggesting, just so I'm clear, like on my self-evaluation, if I say, like I was, chair of such and such committee, I don't need to show some sort of evidence that I'm that chair. I can just say it, and that
you can just say it and we will trust you. Well, also hopefully your chair knows, and peer review committee knows a little bit about what you're doing, and we could look and go, well, you're not the chair of Women's History Month. I know for a fact Ruby's the chair of Women's History Month,
Right.
but
I know I've always
otherwise,
thought that was a little odd, because it's like, why do I have to show evidence that I'm faculty senate president? Doesn't everybody know that by now?
like they see us everywhere. Like they see us so much more than I think anybody would want to see all of us. Right? So
and part of this whole process, we wanted to make sure that the individual evaluations by the individual groups, whether it's a peer, a chair, your self-eval, they're not islands unto themselves, that you actually have interconnectivity. You're having dialogue with your chair and with your peers. So it's not just you saying, I did these 30 things this semester, and somebody's like, well, how do we know? Well, you've talked about it with your chair, you've talked about it with your peers. And like Kelly said, if somebody really wants evidence, you can say, well, here's the email that says that I am faculty senate president, or here is the notes or the minutes from that meeting saying, here are the officers that have been elected for faculty senate. But like she said, we want some trust and we want some collegiality between everybody involved to say, if you're going to put this down, if you're lying, we can find out. I mean, it's not like we're saying we're never going to check, but the whole process of putting together a full dossier is something that you've demonstrated you can do. You've demonstrated that you can do all the things that you have done over the 5, 6, or however many years it is in the probationary or pre-tenure period. So like I said, you've earned the trust, you've earned the respect, demonstrating you are a good faculty member. Now, continual improvement, like with professional development, that's something that's why you have evaluation every couple of years or every 3 or however many we're saying it's going to be, just to say, all right, are you continuing to improve? You're not just like, I'm done, I don't have to do anything else, and I'm just going to sit here.
Yeah, and adding to that, I was looking, it was actually, well, it's been sent to me from several people at this point now. I know Chris was one of the people that sent it to me. We have a very robust system for people who are already tenured already. I was looking at, they're looking at making law changes about tenured professors in Texas. And I think under current law, tenured professors only have to be evaluated like every 6 years. And we're evaluated every other year, regardless of how long we've been there. So we are already much more evaluated than most tenured professors in the state, or at least we're definitely much more evaluated than what is required. I can't actually speak to what all of them are doing, but I think that's an important piece to bring out, is that we are heavily evaluated here, and I think that we are doing a great job.
I had a question about the 7th competency that you added to integrate professional development in hopefully our new tenure model.
Hold on.
Kind of integrating the competencies.
Mm-hmm.
So is that like, are you asking for some sort of metacognitive statement on how you develop that competency or just like,
I
oh,
can
give us a list of
I can
our
get you
main-
the exact wording. Give me just a
Yeah.
second here and I will find it because I sent it to you guys because it
Yeah, I
because
think,
it
you know,
took me
one
a
of
little
the
while to get
sort
it.
of complications is that, you know, it's not like, and we talked about this, I'm probably contradicting something I said at one point, but, you know, it's not like we're going to do like one, like this year I will work on equity and then I check the box and I'm not going to work on equity anymore.
Ever again.
We're always going to be working on lots of stuff. And in a single year, hopefully everybody is lifting all 7 competencies, you know, by attending trainings, working on projects. So I think, oh, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. I figured it's easier than trying to read it.
I think that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And it could be, you know, if there's even a way to make it even slightly more open-ended to say, you know, and anything else. Oh yeah, any additional information not yet captured. I mean, I think that's great because somebody might say, actually, I did all 7. And here's how, you know, but it doesn't require you to do that. I think that's what we're going for, is to let faculty tell their story.
And part of that too is speaking to the 7 is that we also, one of the things that we get told a lot when consultants come in and they look at what we're doing is that we're all doing too many things at once, and which means we're not doing anything really well. And so we were kind of hoping people would choose to focus on 2 to 3 things, like would be guided towards that idea, so that you really get more in depth with those things that you're working on instead of, you know,
Well, and
kind
that's why we put
like shotgun shot.
did you most develop, because you can be doing all 7 things or
Mhm.
touching on all 7 things, but
But where's the
you know,
focus?
kind of toot your own horn and say, what did I do best? Or, you know, what is the thing that I'm focused on? Because like Kelly said, if you're spread too thin and doing everything just a little bit, you might say, all right, let's focus on one area to improve or another area to improve to make sure that everything is then up to standards that we'd all accept and be proud of in our evaluations.
You know, and just aside from evaluation piece, I think this could actually serve as a good guide to chairs and administrators to see where faculty passions are and where they're really talented. I know one of the things that we've discussed several times, at least with UFS, is about that we have so much talent in our faculty, and yet we're always hiring out for training, for consultants and things like that. But if you're putting these things in here, it's like, we've got a superstar in this. This person could be the one up there leading these discussions or doing, you know, or being the assistant to the VPAA or running QEP or, you know, whatever it is that's up next. It would be a good way for people to know where people's interests are and also where they're talented.
Just briefly on the artifact front, you know, I think there are some things that we have to have, and I think
Sure.
that would include, you know, and this goes to sort of, you know, quality of both the artifact and the conversation that is happening around it, because since there are, you know, fewer like this all, you know, all 100 things ever that, you know, relate to teaching, and then you don't really talk about any of them. Like, I think we need a syllabus.
Sure.
And I think we need to have a conversation about that syllabus. We need to have, you know, a lesson plan, and need to have a real conversation about that lesson plan or assignment, you know, assignment prompt, you know, some of these like basic, just like nuts and bolts, how you teach, your instructional method, your instructional delivery. I think we do need, I would never say like, we don't need to have those at all. It's just the number of like every, you know, the idea that you have to submit everything and then nothing is actually looked at. So
one of the ideas, go ahead. You weren't quite finished. I'm sorry. I thought you were finished.
I think I was probably going to repeat something, but so I guess it would be cool to, I mean, this is what you were saying, is be slightly prescriptive, is like, these are the things we need. Now your chair might say we need more, and this is what you need. So you need to have the open-endedness of the chair saying, actually, we need this stuff. But at the very minimum, or, you know, whatever else is added, we're definitely going to have these 5 things or whatever it ends up being, but not more than that.
Right. And what we've kind of kicked around a little bit, we're like, so we're still kicking it around. So I don't want to say that this has been decided in any way, is an idea of one that they're kind of building. So year 1, we want most of their artifacts focused in the teaching realm. Like what are you doing? So get us a syllabus, get us maybe a learning activity or an assessment that kind of exemplifies how you teach, how you bring material to your students, how you engage. And then like, did you do master teacher? Did you get online certified? Those kinds of pieces, and then adding in more service in that second year, adding in kind of more professional development and contributions to the profession that 3rd year. And then as they go forward, now bring it all until, let's drive it home these next 3 years to show that, you know, you're the kind of faculty member we want tenured here at the good old Alamo colleges. You know what I mean? So I think that's kind of what we're looking at. Some people are not sure about that. They're thinking maybe that it's actually important that year one, you're already kicking into service and kicking into professional development. So we have to kind of work through those differences of opinion to see what's most important for, for demonstrating that we have great faculty members.
How is a faculty improvement plan referenced in your evaluation?
We're not sure yet, and that's important because apparently not everybody has the same understanding of what a faculty improvement plan is or how they're handled or what they mean. And my understanding also from talking to people, I've only seen ever one of somebody's, and I don't know how it played out at the end. It was more just talking them through what to do because they were on one. A lot of people don't know how you ever get off one once you're on one. Like it seems to be this kind of arbitrary, at some point someone decides. And so those are some concerns.
This is one of the issues, and maybe this is a good segue into tenure. If we're sort of nearing the end of our evaluation chat, which maybe we're not, but so maybe I should hold off. But
Kelly, you got anything else?
Dovetails with.
I do not, and if something else comes up from the other conversations, we can jump back in if we need to. So I think this is a good segue.
Okay. Tenure?
Take it away, Aaron. Take it away.
Well, Judah and I have been working on the editing with Lenny and Mary, the editing team. Based on our conversation, we've had some conversations since our last EFC meeting, including with Trustee Aldarete, as well as with the Chancellor and Linda, and Dr. Rayleigh was there, I believe, also. And so, we're talking about what this would look like, and some of the concerns that are being raised, of course, are around faculty accountability and how someone gets fired if there's a bad apple. And of course, the reference goes back to I believe the case way back whenever that was in 2011, or and how hard it was just for somebody to get canned when it was appropriate for that to happen. So additionally, then the chancellor brought back up the issue of multi-year contracts and what role does that play? And to some degree made it clear that that needs to be addressed. Now, that had been addressed in a previous meeting of the ad hoc committee, in which, having spoken with Linda, and she said, you should look at multi-year contracts. Okay, we talked about that, kind of wrote up what would that look like, brought it to the ad hoc committee, and they said, that's not tenure. We don't want that. So we've talked about it, and as that was the answer. So now we're sort of at this point where we have our report pretty close to being completed with our recommendations, pretty close to being completed. But I think at this point, it's safe to say will be not satisfactory to the chancellor because they do not address multi-year contracts. So, we're at a sort of decision point, inflection point as an EFC, as an ad hoc certainly, and as EFC, do we take our recommendations as is and say, these are our recommendations, which I think I'm inclined to do to preserve the integrity of our process and not change the recommendations before we've made them based on what we think someone wants to hear. And then, it'll come back and say, well, actually, that's not going to work because X, Y, Z. And we say, oh, okay, well, then how about this, So, so that's sort of where we are. Judah, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just going to add that, the ad hoc committee didn't like the idea of multi-year contracts, but we did recognize that that was a way that other colleges were providing that job security when they didn't have tenure. It's a model that's out there. But the reason why we chose not to include it was not because we were rejecting the idea outright, but because that's not tenure. So we can't include it in this model because under the definition of tenure, a multi-year contract just doesn't fit. So I just wanted to kind of be clear about that, that it wasn't an idea that we were outright rejecting. We just don't want to recommend it and have that muddled with tenure.
And I
We
think
kinda
that needs to be
take it off.
stated. I think that's an important distinction there.
Thank you for
Right.
saying that, Judah. I also think it's really important that we consider, we're making a recommendation in a district where tenure was suspended, not eliminated. So I think that's our saving grace, right? We're making recommendations about a conversation that was supposedly put on pause. It was not a conversation that the board voted and said, this is gone forever. They voted and said, put it on pause until further discussion and investigation. So I think that's our only saving grace in speaking back to the administration who wants multi-year contracts. Well, we're making recommendations about something you put on pause that already exists in our district. We're not here to just make recommendations about a new thing unless you go ahead and do away with tenure for all new forever. And then we can talk about if it's gone forever.
I agree. And I think, and I'm going to sound like a broken record to some people who've been in several other rooms with me, but one of the things that we also need to bring up is that it's been put on pause. There are still tenured people, tons of us. And that situation that happened is clearly a very isolated situation because as far as I know, there's not been another one like it since. It's not like there's this rush of tenured professors and faculty that are doing all of these outrageous things. And at the time, part of why that went so badly was because we did not have certain structures in place that we were supposed to have in place according to our own policies and procedures, like the tenure review committee. We now have that in place, and I could be wrong, happens, but I'm fairly certain that any group of tenured faculty members looking at that particular case that happened would have been like, this guy's got to go. I might be wrong about that. Like maybe there have been some other evidence that we didn't know about, but I don't think, that's a process. And that's another important thing. I don't even think we've ever had to use the process. That's how rare it is. And so to say that we're not going to have tenure anymore because one time more than a decade ago, something terrible happened, just seems like a really bad thing to do to our generally speaking great faculty.
So part of the recommendation here is, and this may not see, one of my fears on this, by the way, is that we've written like a really nice looking, hey, this is a good report, 50-page report, and I guess I just want some assurance that someone's going to read it. That like the chancellor, the board of trustees, people will read it, look through the whole thing, and actually see the whole thing, and then say, well, here's, based on your report, what we think. Here's our response to your recommendations, and not litmus test, does it have multi-year contracts, because that's not really fair to our process. One of the things I say that because one of the things we talk about is in addressing that concern is that there's a need to revise the progressive discipline procedures for tenured and non-tenured faculty. There are two of them, as well as the procedures for contract non-renewal for non-tenured faculty and termination for faculty, as well as, to some degree, I think in there we can go look at the faculty evaluation procedure, which may get a tweak anyway as part of the other ad hoc committee, and they should speak to each other a little bit better. If they spoke to each other a little bit better, then we probably wouldn't have this conversation. The termination procedure starts with the appeal, really. I mean, it references like how the reasons why you might be terminated, but how you get there really is progressive discipline, including like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 of this process. What constitutes an offense that could be, cause for immediate termination, right? So like they go together. And if you just start with the termination procedure, you could very well be out of compliance with the other one, and thereby like the whole thing is compromised and legally like, oh, did you do this? No. So, I think that the points about, oh, we don't follow our own procedure are these concerns that we just don't even want to deal with this because it's so fraught. Why would we want to bring, set ourselves up for a litigious situation by bringing back tenure, which again is already there for over half of our faculty, at least as of 2 years ago, is over half of our faculty still are afforded the due process rights in that procedure. So I guess that's sort of my wish, is that we can have the nuanced discussion to say, hey, wait a second, really, let's look at this and have an honest accounting of what's there, how it could be improved, and improve it to the extent that we can both have tenure and have accountability and get rid of somebody within the, that needs to go if we just follow this process that's very clearly defined. And yet, since there's these two different procedures that sort of work together but are separate, and when you read them, there's like some weird like sequencing things. There's a step 1, step 2, step 3 in the termination procedure, and step 3 is like 2.5 pages long. It's a description of how you assemble the faculty pool, like the appeal committee, basically. This is a long thing. So by the time you get to step 4, it's like, what are we talking about? I forgot, So like all you gotta do is pluck out that whole thing and put it down at the bottom, and say, for a description on how you assemble the pool, go to section 5 or whatever, and immediately the process would be so much clearer.
Yeah, I think if making the process clear will help, and I also think that like we really, I want us, and I definitely will, strongly push back against this concept of these multi-year contracts, because what it sounds like when we asked specifically why they wanted them, they said because the process for removing a tenured member is too difficult. And if we make it more clear and more streamlined, that's fine. But when they tell me that, what I'm hearing is, at no point do we think a faculty member deserves due process before they're terminated. We would rather just wait till they're like little 3-year contracts up and just let them go. And I don't think that that's acceptable. And I don't think that that's something that we should be doing at a Baldrige institution.
It's not even that great for accountability. Whether there's a problem in the first year, you're just going to wait it out and run out the clock. You want to be able to get rid of somebody immediately. Go through your process. Process is there. So yeah, I agree with that.
And that doesn't fix the question about, recruiting strong faculty with the expectation of long-term job security. Because that's one of the things that the board members seem to latch onto. I'm thinking of like Clint Kingsbury and Polito, like really recognizing that tenure and that job security is part of recruitment and quality faculty. Not that we're not quality, but just as we continue.
I think that might be something that is now able to be discussed, because in the past, our past chancellor said that was never a problem and that we never had problems with recruitment or filling particular positions. And now we have stipends for high demand faculty. So clearly we are not across the board not having problems with recruitment. So I think that is a area that we could talk about. But also, I just wanted to note that I think maybe Cindy's having flashbacks here. I think this might be one of the times that we're going to have to test the process of EFC, because I think we might go to SLT, or I'm just conjecturing here, but from the comments that I'm hearing you all say is that at SLT, we might get the recommendation that we go back and make multi-year contracts, and we might have to stand our ground and say, that's not a recommendation.
Thank you for saying that, Michael. So what I'd like to talk to y'all about, I'm sure Judah would too, is I would like to figure out like what's the best way to do this. So I think we have our report, we have our recommendation.
Yeah.
So should we give that straight to the chancellor and say, hey, look, this is what we could, because he has said, so the reason I'm saying this is at the board meeting, if you were checking out the board meeting, thank you, Cindy, great job, of course, on Tuesday. And it was really interesting, right? And we were hearing like supportive comments. So that's really encouraging. And he said something like, I, the chancellor, will not allow a proposal to come forth that I'm not comfortable with. And it was very like a personal statement, So now we're talking about our process being SLT, goes to SLT, right? That's the process. So
it goes to EFC first.
Yes. Oh, yes. Excuse me.
Okay.
I mean, after it moves out. So, if we bring this back and say, okay, we're comfortable with this in 2 weeks, and then we have to get on the SLT calendar. Well, the time frame goes way out to like, well, when can we get on SLT? Okay, like in August or something like that, and then, and then they send it back, and we're on into next year. I mean, can we I mean, I'm not trying to do different than what our work charge is. I'm just looking at the facts here and saying, if we come up with this thing, knowing ahead of time that it's going to need further review or editing or some revision or some horse trading, because the chancellor's has already said, like, this is my bar, my standard, or my issue that we need to address. So can we just send it to him? Or was that going to be like contrary to our EFC thing, and we have to wait?
I don't remember him saying that. But I was in a different zone. But I know that when I presented lab loading, the chancellor did not agree with what I was presenting and what I was putting forward. I did not need the chancellor's approval to go forward to the board with what we had. And that's what I went with. I didn't go with what the chancellor wanted. I went with what the EFC wanted.
Because so that's good for us to know, that kind of historical memory, that we can do that. And it isn't going to SLT going to the chancellor, because isn't that the chancellor and the president's?
Yes.
Okay.
But
And the reality is, when we make the case for how you've streamlined the process determination, and when you explain why we don't want the 3-year contracts, he might get on board. Like, I think what he's concerned about is making sure that there is a way that's not overly arduous and litigious for removing a faculty that truly needs to go. And I think if we show them that we've created that, or well, you've created that, he might just come on board. You never know. Like, it's not a guarantee he's going to say no. He just wants to hear about it.
And for clarification, does the tenure proposal that you guys have put together currently outline a streamlined or at least highlight the existing process for progressive discipline and termination of tenured faculty members?
So my sense on this, and I asked Linda if we could get together and talk about it. But, I mean, these are like highly complex and really charged, legal procedures. So based on a previous discussion we had, I think that the answer is we need a tenure model and a set of recommendations sort of in general, and not like we don't need to propose like the revision itself. So I was ready to like get together and like, hey, let's look at these procedures and edit them. And it's like, no, you gotta have a lot of lawyers involved, and like it's a involved deal. So I think we're just gonna say, look, we need to look at these, we need to edit them for clarity, and that's the recommendation, not here's how and what they should say.
Okay. Yeah, because because I've been on our faculty hearing pool at St. Philip's for about 6 years. I've never gotten a phone call saying we need to do this.
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I have. Now, it got dropped after we met for orientation. It didn't go forward, but I have gotten called to be part of that faculty pool for tenure review or whatever.
Termination.
Do you know,
termination.
did the faculty member go ahead and resign, or was it a matter of?
We were just told we were no longer needed. The matter had been settled.
We don't know. Okay.
Because that's something else that we investigate is how many termination procedures were either started, initiated, and how many of them went through the process that exists and were fixed, or the person resigned, or the person was fired. I mean,
yeah.
we can't go into the details, but does our process work? I mean, that could be something for another ad hoc committee that reviews the termination of tenure faculty procedure. But
that's a really good point. And one of the issues with, I'm sorry, if someone else wanting to speak, keep talking.
Yeah. Erin and Judah, I just wanted to know, in your research, because it looked really good, and I know you showed us part of it. In y'all's research, did y'all research how many tenured faculty actually get fired in Texas?
We
Like
have
the
a list of-
statistics?
No, but there's a list of articles about
Of cases. Yeah,
around
it's
the
kind of,
country.
it's been put into an appendix, but one of our team members found a list of cases of tenured faculty being fired, and it's quite an extensive list, and it's kind of split between cases where due process was followed or wasn't followed, and then cases that involved academic freedom. So
And
we have that as examples that it happens, but
one of the things that we see is that Oh, Michael has got her hand up. I just have a quick.
And I
quick
think
point to
Vicente, did you have a comment or a
Oh, yeah,
question
sorry.
also?
No, I mean, my comment was what you said, Aaron. Like, I think, I mean, we did a lot of work on this, and the feedback should come after they read the document. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the least we can ask. And as you said, I mean, I think we can listen to the recommendations and we can make amendments and we can come back and look at what we did. But I mean, can we present the document? I don't know.
I know that in the past there has been what was presented, and then there was a discussion, and then there was a revisiting of it. So just because there's one board presentation doesn't necessarily mean that'll be the last one if there's a discussion that happens when you do present. So I don't know if that helps you or hurt, you know, to have that knowledge that it's not a one and done thing. There's back and forth.
Before we got too far off of the termination thing and looking at like statistics in Texas of who gets terminated with tenure. Also, we just need to remember that people don't get awarded tenure. And that's the whole thing, is that you have to
Right.
be a strong faculty member to be awarded tenure. So if we are going to look at that, we should also look at, because in IVC at least, the story is that that's how people who weren't performing got weeded out. And now there may not be as easy of a way because people just roll over onto the next year-to-year cycle. So
So,
we also
yeah, I
want
mean,
to
it's the due
point that out.
process
That's why
thing.
tenure exists.
The due process piece, you know, it helps the institution to have a robust due process procedure, because if there were litigation, the institution can say, look, we followed these steps. Now, if you don't follow the steps, well, then obviously that's no help. But the thing is, so for non-renewal of contract faculty, there's no appeal process. You are just allowed to file a grievance. Grievance goes straight to the chancellor. Well, if you don't like that, what do you do? Because there's no due process, or I shouldn't say there's no due process. There's like less due process, right? At least in the procedure. So you hire a lawyer. And as we've been told, as soon as there's a lawyer involved, the matter goes to the board. And so this idea that there's a streamlined, you know, termination, non-renewal process that makes it easier to get rid of somebody is sort of a, what's the term? Is it a red herring? Is that appropriate here? Because, you know, when someone is feeling like they didn't get the due process, they're more likely to sue, and then you're just back at the board anyway, you know. So it actually it's a better it's institutionally it makes more sense to have the due process in there. Makes it harder to sue and successfully sue, or, you know, litigate, because you can say, look, we did all the stuff, we had our process, we followed it. So I mean, that's our case. I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know, as far as, you know, the accountability, how hard, I think it's better overall for Alamo colleges to have more due process and procedure rather than less, is my feeling. I wonder, and you know, Dr. Raley, I don't know if you have any wisdom on this. I would love to know if you do. You hear our sort of, you know, back and forth on the issue, and you know, I want to be effective. I also want to follow our work charge, our work process. But Dr. Raley, got any ideas on this one? And if not, that's also fine. All right.
So
I would like to add, like, I think that looking at this process from that point of view is limited. I mean, tenure means more things than just that. And I think it's an opportunity to really look at what tenure means. And, you know, as Michael Lee said, I mean, this is an opportunity also for an institution to look at what they want to be in the next 5-10 years. You know, it's part of the mission. You want to have the best faculty because you're the best community college in the country, then this is what it is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe
Well, yeah, you're right. It's just a sticking point. You know, ends up being a pretty small part of our report, really. The rest of it is like all of the wonderful things that we've been talking about tenure being and the value of it.
Yeah.
The actual recommendations that we have are substantial changes to the tenure process, and it needs to be noted that we're not just talking about. I mean, this is where we're sort of having this conversation because it looks like it's a point of contention and may be a make or break issue. But if you actually look at our recommendations, I don't know if anybody actually wants to see them. And these, by the way, have yet to be formally approved by our ad hoc, and hopefully we will be, and they'll be discussed today. You want to see them? We have time for this, or we need to move on?
So if the others want to see it, that's fine. But as you're bringing that up, I was curious about a question I asked in chat a little while ago. And this applies to tenure and the faculty evaluation. Are we, at any point before we move these forward to SLT and then try to go before the board, are we planning on grabbing some feedback from the faculty? Are we, because I think so for something huge like tenure, especially, well, both of these are huge, right? That are affecting the faculty.
I think we run it through our process, our faculty input process.
So wait for the fall for these to be. No, I agree with that. I'm just hesitant about, I know we're coming up on the end of the semester and.
Well,
Yeah,
if we're
we're in-
not hearing the recommendations here at EFC until our last meeting, unless the small or whoever is going to work during the summer was going to present to SLT, it's going to be in the fall anyways, right?
So we can send it through our model after we've presented to SLT.
No, I think that I would imagine that EFC would do both at once, be asking SLT to get on their calendar, which isn't always easy, and running it through the input model at the same time at the beginning of fall.
We can't change
That's
it
what I
once
would
it's left
imagine.
Once
EFC.
it needs to be done before it comes before EFC.
So once it leaves EFC, there's no
We have to do
revisions or
this.
changes.
No, you can revise, but you shouldn't be planning to revise.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And Olivia, you had wanted to say something earlier.
Yes. So I have a question. If we present this to SLT, does SLT have the authority to say, we don't accept this as presented, go back and do these changes, come back to SLT again, and then we go to the board?
No.
No.
In the past, and what I did with lab loading is I did not have, at the time, PVC's stamp of approval on lab loading. I still went forward to the board. Now, there was back and forth and there was adjustments that were made.
And at our last meeting with Dr. Flores, I asked about the research he had done that has been done in this area. And he said he would get it done, but we didn't get a date as to when he would be submitting that or talking to us about the multi-year contracts. Have we heard anything from him along those lines?
I have not.
I'm mixed on running through the faculty input model, honestly, because we have this group that's put in, countless hours on this work, and then we send it out. And don't get me wrong. I love faculty input. I love faculty input models. It's like, we're going to send it through and get all of this input. And people are like, well, it's like off the cuff. Like, I think that's tenure is this, And it's like, hey, okay, I'll appreciate, and I'm just probably being a little bit too candid here, it sounds like I don't like faculty input, which I do. I just think that we've gone through this extensive
The EFC is the
hundreds of
faculty
hours
input.
process with people who have
I
studied
agree.
the issue from all
Wait.
angles, and then we're going to send it out for somebody to get a knee-jerk reaction to it.
Yep.
And then I'm like,
Wait.
ugh.
I
So
think
I'm
Cindy
sorry.
just
You're
said
right.
it.
It's better to
Yep.
faculty input. I love faculty.
Cindy just said it.
I'm sorry.
ESC is supposed to
It's
be
faculty input.
We're
Can I say
representative of all the colleges. That's why there's,
That's why
So
y'all
many
are
of
on the
us.
EFC, because y'all are
Michael,
representatives of the faculty.
And we have faculty from each college on the committee, and hopefully
Correct.
those representatives are talking to their faculty.
Historically, we have never had full faculty input on EFC issues. We've had limited subsets of faculty input, but it was, again, mainly to get the ad hoc members. So we haven't gone out to the faculty at large to get input, and this is a slow process the way it is. And personally, and believe me, I am all for faculty input. I think the PPAC that y'all came up with is great. I just don't think that it needs to go through both PPAC and EFC. If it comes through EFC, I think that's the faculty input, and we can go from there. That's just my 2 cents worth as faculty fellow.
I strongly disagree because this is a new time. We've never had the faculty input model, and we do not want to be cherry picking in ways that we would not want other people to do. So I think we put everything that is a procedure or policy district-wide that directly affects faculty through our input model. And I don't think that it has to be as cumbersome as we're making it. We've been selling it as a streamlined process that the faculty, the senates are in charge of. So that feedback that you're referencing, Erin, unfortunately, it's going to be you looking at it, right? But it doesn't have to be your entire ad hoc group unless there's something that is like, wow, we really, really didn't consider this. We're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And if that occurs, then we'll learn from it. We'll learn from that process. But I strongly, strongly feel that if we're going to ask everyone else to do the thing that we worked so hard on for 2 years, we have to do the thing too.
Okay, I have a question. That model that you're talking about, Michael Lee, is it already in place? Has it been approved?
No.
Our part is completely done, has been done for a long time. We're waiting on the district to come up with the PPAC procedure, put it together and present it to the board. So
okay, so I guess that's where I'm confused with, is we're trying to follow that model, but it's not completely in place. So can we do that?
well, we're hoping that it will be in place. And I guess we don't even have to have the conversation until it is, right? Like, well, first, until we have the recommendations from the tenure committee, and second, when that happens, if it's in place. But I'm hoping that it will be. I'm optimistic that that's going to be a real thing.
Just a thought, well, 2 things. On one, the chancellor was hoping that we'd be able to use that process starting in August at the last meeting that we had with him. But one of the things is that process was put in place so that district and administration would not be pushing down changes to procedure that affected us without any faculty input. This process has faculty input. This was actually came up from faculty. We are the ones pushing it, and it has lots of faculty input. So I think it might be a little bit different. I think we definitely want that PPAC, and this is also something I think we definitely need to outline in our processes, like when these things are necessary, so that we have a clear cut answer and we're not doing this every single time. But it seems to me that these processes, EFC charges, are faculty charges. They come from faculty. They're faculty led, they're faculty driven. The members are all faculty. I think that that's different because it does have faculty input, whereas something that's coming down from the top, from administrators or from the board wanting to change procedure, that's a different thing where we definitely want to make sure faculty got input. So I think they are 2 separate processes.
I agree that this is different because it is coming from faculty. Like, we're all faculty senate presidents. We represent our faculty. You know, we talk about the work that we're doing in these ad hoc meetings and our faculty senate meetings. And our assumption is that those faculty senate reps are going back to their divisions, departments, whatever, and sharing this information and gathering feedback. But I mean, we don't know how effectively that happens. One of the biggest complaints that still comes from faculty is that they feel like they're not in communication about changes that are being made and decisions that are being made. And that's often at the administrative level. I guess I'm just concerned about doing to them what we're upset about admin doing to us. And I know that it's different because we're faculty, but I would still like some way, even if it's not the faculty input model, if it's some sort of standardized Google Doc survey that we're sending out to all of our faculty, it's just some way of saying we got their input, giving them a space to give us.
You know,
we've done
I don't know
surveys
if
at our
everyone
college.
does that, but I know those are standing items on our faculty senate meeting agendas. There's a time for faculty to be heard. We go over what we've been doing with those at every meeting. At a certain point, because that agenda goes out to everybody, it is a faculty member's responsibility to choose to know, to choose to be involved, to choose to, take the information given to them. So now that said, I don't know that every faculty senate is doing that. So, and maybe we need to make sure that that is happening everywhere.
Cindy, I wonder if we can, this is an issue. We need to figure this out.
Yeah.
We don't have consensus.
Yeah.
But I think we all agree that faculty input is important. Part of my concern is that like there's redundancy of some effort, time-wise, more so than the content of the input. Because it's like we took a year on this thing, and now we're gonna. The other thing, I know Michael, he doesn't have to say, we can do an expedited process. But I wonder if we can build into and this is like, I'm not suggesting like we take a vote right now because this takes some thought, but can we build into the EFC work process that since this is so important, we have a faculty input model somewhere in the EFC process is automatically anything that comes to the EFC goes through the faculty input model. And with the time frame that it doesn't significantly slow down or delay the reporting out from EFC to the next step. So for this point, we don't have that. I think it's totally appropriate that we need to inform faculty of what we're doing. We need to run it through our model. But I think going forward, we need to formalize that, and not, okay, EFC finished its work, now it goes to the other thing. And maybe it's just the last step of the EFC process, but it needs to be built in.
I agree. And thank you for mentioning the time, because I was about to jump in and ask, like, what is the downfall? Like, why are we so concerned? And I get the duplication of effort. That to me is not as concerning, because honestly, the people who are duplicating it are in this room. And I already know you do a lot of things. And so that's terrible to say, but I know that you're invested in these projects enough that like gathering more feedback, right? It's not like the end of the world. To do good work, sometimes it takes time and hearing multiple voices and sometimes repetitively. But the time how the EFC, this group, and move it to the next step. It will be the first time that we ever have an interaction between EFC and the input model. We learn a lot from it. We learn how long does it take? What kind of feedback do we get? Is it a useful step? So I advocate for us to use it.
Yeah, we want to get your flow chart out. Like, so what are we sending the input? Were we sending the report before it goes to Chancellor? And so like, let's get input on that. He comes back and like, well, multi-year contract, maybe, we don't know. It comes back with something.
I would say it goes before the EFC.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about gathering the faculty input?
Yeah.
I would say do that before you present to EFC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But then if it changes, if there's any back and forth, do we do it again?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so
if the ad hoc committee decides to accept the changes, you don't have to accept the changes.
Yeah, we don't have to accept the changes unless somebody, says something dramatic that we're like, oh my gosh, like that is something we didn't think of and we need to take that into account. My concern is our faculty know that we're working on this. And I've, Caroline and I, at our college, we've kept them informed as much as we can about the details we have. But both of these groups, this is a work in process. And I'm thinking our faculty don't know the finished product. So they know that we're working on this, but they don't know the intricate details. So I feel like it would be fair for us to at least have some sort of moment to share with them, like, this is the model that we're asking for before we ask for it.
If we have our meeting, I was just wondering like when we would do that in this case for both evaluation and tenure, because we're going to have our last meeting in a couple of weeks. And then, so there's not really, do we just do it at the beginning of the fall? Do we essentially, whatever we get at our next meeting, we're sort of done with this until August because we can't submit it to Chancellor SLT without going through our faculty input model?
Well, as a reminder, our input model is specifically about changes to policy or procedure. So I don't know that your entire packet and recommendation, unless you wanted to share that, has to go through the input model. It would be like some sort of document that shows what sort of recommendations you're making to the actual procedure or to
Like
the actual policy.
5-slide presentation, an abbreviated version of the recommendations.
And in
Something
the
like
case
that.
of tenure, you're not really making procedural recommendation changes except for like unsuspend the thing, right? Like that's the only recommendation.
Well, I think there's a little bit more to it than that. And there are
I know, but I'm suggesting that it's not the full packet of recommendations. It's whatever recommendations you're specifically making to policy or procedure changes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or comments on that? Aaron, you've given us plenty to think about.
And another thing. Oh, just joking. Just joking. Why don't we
I'm
move on?
sorry, I'm the one that asked the question that started that.
So
Well-
Aaron, are y'all going to present at the next meeting?
So I was going to say, we have our meeting today with the ad hoc in which we will, I believe, formalize our final recommendations that will then allow us to transform that into a presentation. And Judah, what do you think? I still think we're good to present 2 weeks from today to EFC, but what do you think?
So what you're suggesting is what we're presenting to EFC is the final product that we hope to send to SLT.
Yes.
I mean, we can. I guess I'm just still wondering. I don't know. I'm still concerned about not sharing this with faculty at large. And I don't know the process. Maybe we haven't shared it with faculty at large before bringing stuff to EFC and then SLT.
We haven't gone before the faculty before because we figured that with the representatives being the chairs of the committees and the ad hoc committees being thoughtfully selected, because those ad hoc committees are not just, okay, you.
Right.
There's a lot of thought put into that. And the thought was to be representative.
No, I think we can have, we will have a lot of work to do, I think, over the next, was it the 2-3 weeks? But I think it could be.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is for the future, but I like that idea that we share what we do at the individual faculty senate, because in a way, I mean, we don't get to vote on these proposals at the district level, but as a faculty body, I mean, we can validate the work that we do. And when we present, or at a district level committees, I mean, we can also validate by supporting how much the faculty is supporting these proposals at the colleges. I mean, I think it would be nice to share this at the faculty senate meetings, and
it brings up a good point, that if we do send it out and accompanied by some survey, maybe do you support this? And if we're able to say that 98% of faculty support this proposal, that would be an important and valuable piece of information to share. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
Even for the board, when we present this to the board, like the faculty are like this percentage of faculty are behind it, or this,
Yeah.
I
So what do
have
we
a
do?
question.
So, go ahead.
As far as, so you're saying for the future of Vicente and Judah is to present, like, for example, the proposal that y'all have to our senates. And the problem with that is that the senates are open, right? And which means that any journalists or journalists from the Ranger can come in, and it's an unfinished document. It has not been approved. And so they can start writing up all kinds of, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't
And I got an email from Rocky, who was the reporter who was here at the last meeting, because the EFC meetings are also open. And he said that he would not report anything that wasn't complete, or he would put that it was still being worked on. So he wouldn't,
Okay,
he said he wouldn't
excellent.
present anything as finished that wasn't finished.
I think we should agree that it's the finished product that we intend to present to EFC unchanged. I guess it could, that's the point if we're not going to be able to change it based on faculty input. All right. Well, anyway,
Right.
I think that each faculty senate president should then, the way that we have done some faculty input with procedures at MVC is we send it out in a Qualtrics and then, provide, some feedback opportunity either within a text box. Of course, we could have questions, having looked at this, what are your impressions? either prompted or just, and I'm sure there would be some like open-ended text box situation. But I think that, we could do that. I think, for right now, hey, we're kind of bumping up at the end of the year, and to do it right, I think we end up running out of time, because I'm not sure that we can provide adequate time for our faculty input, make the changes to based on the faculty input, and get that all in before our next EFC meeting in 2 weeks. So
Well, I liked your idea of
Question?
just a simple question, like, here's the recommendation, do you agree? And maybe
Yeah.
with the little qualitative box, do you have,
Well, I
Is
guess,
there-
we need, this.
I have a-
Yeah,
We
go ahead.
do have meetings
have a
over the
question.
summer as well.
Yeah, and just, is there any reason why, because I know this is a concern, Cindy can send out things to all of the faculty. Is there any way she could send out a thing that's got like, here's the proposal, and it's got a 2-question survey. What do you like about this? What do you not like about it?
One
Or,
idea that you might think about is similar to what faculty development did for the retreat, where they had the focus groups, and those that weren't able to participate had a link where they could provide their opinions, information, whatever it is. That way, each faculty member had an opportunity to participate, either by their presence or through clicking onto the link. And this way, we know that all faculty had the opportunity, everyone was invited to participate.
Okay.
good idea. I wish we had thought about a focus group with faculty just about tenure, like
Yeah.
6 months ago. Yeah.
So at the
So-
level where, in the faculty input model, at the level where it gets to the college senate, faculty senate, and it goes out to that college's faculty, we left it general enough that each college president could decide, are you going to use a Canvas something? Are you going to use Qualtrics? Are you just going to gather by email? Now, of course, the content to get the right kind of feedback should be similar. It should be aligned at each college. But I mean, I think we use the model. We're talking about coming up with a way to get feedback when we already developed this model to get feedback. We should just use the model.
I just think that
Does everyone
open-ended
know what the
feedback
actual
is-
model is? Like, do we all have that right now?
I don't.
I
Because
don't.
it hasn't been approved yet, so.
I mean, I can resend the presentation that I gave in October to the board, but I mean, it's basically,
that-
it's the timeline that it comes from, whoever developed
Yeah.
it. It goes to the UFS. The UFS takes it down to the colleges as well as the district committee, the chairs. Why can't I say their names right now? The council
council
chairs.
chairs?
That's it. Yeah, I was like, well, what are they called?
Kathy.
And it comes back up. It goes back to the Senate presidents who come back to compile feedback and make some decisions about what the recommendation is. So since the UFS and the EFC are similar members, I mean, that feedback comes back here.
Is there any reason, and I'm sincerely asking, I don't know, is there any reason why we as presidents couldn't just right now decide that we're going to send out the single survey as a group to everybody? Like could we agree to all do the same thing?
Yeah, I think we'd have to agree to some standardized language, and then about what we're, like, after Aaron and I meet today with the ad hoc committee, we'd have to decide what is our recommendation, and we don't have to send the report. I would be hesitant to send a 50-page report to faculty, especially at the end of the semester.
It would come back marked up with a bunch of,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they'd turn all Maximilian Robespierre on us.
where's your reference for this? Kind of weak in this
Yeah.
area.
But at least, like, here's what we're, just at least some sort of description of our recommendation.
Well, I think we would need to make the PowerPoint and maybe an accompanying narrative that just briefly, maybe the executive summary from the.
And I do
Right,
have the
exactly.
question in about extending the PowerPoint slide.
Yeah, that was one of my questions: is how long do we have? Is it 10? Is it
I didn't put a number.
as much as we need?
I just said extended.
Okay. Does that extend the time then also to present it?
I would assume so, yes.
So, all right, well, maybe we'll just think more like 10. I
So,
feel like we're shortchanging the faculty student mentoring folks, and
yeah, I think that this discussion has come to about all we can get accomplished during this meeting. I think Judah and Aaron, during your tenure meeting later on today, you'll
Yeah.
definitely have a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. But yes, let's move on to the faculty student mentoring. And any updates you've got for us on that, Judah?
Yeah, so we met, our ad hoc committee met this week. You know, we were still struggling with that issue that I mentioned at the last meeting, that the committee didn't really think that what was being asked for us in the deliverables was different from what we currently do in our mentoring programs. You know, so we kept coming back to that question of why was this brought to us to begin with? We've done a lot of great work in sharing, in coming to some understandings of what is working well in our mentoring programs and where there could be better collaboration and sharing between colleges of what works well. And so we have some recommendations of how to improve our mentoring programs. And we thought that we could leave it at that, right? That we could just make recommendations for improving participation on both the student side and the faculty side. But we also had a meeting with the chancellor this week. And that took us back to sort of the theoretical level of, and we had a little bit more understanding in theory of why SLT brought this to us. And it helped us get a little bit more grounding in some of the equity issues that the chancellor is thinking about. He recognizes that we already have a mentoring program, and it's not just about making it better, but really focus on the equity piece. And he gave us some examples of some mentoring programs at other colleges to look at. I was just looking at that one from Georgia that he mentioned. So I was thinking, and as a group, we kind of thought that maybe we could bring recommendations in May. But now that we've gone back to this theoretical level, I have to, you know, talk to the group and decide, you know, what we need to do. If we are going to be making recommendations, or if we need to take a longer time to develop a clearer model and a clearer structure. I'm leaning towards the fact that our faculty student mentoring model needs an actual charter and, you know, a kind of a foundational document that clearly defines it and specifies its organizational structure and its, you know, how it works in practice. We did get clarity from him that he is looking for a district model, that this needs to be a district model, but each college can operate its model individually. But yeah, we are creating a kind of an umbrella district model of
overarching framework.
Overarching framework. Thank you. That's a overarching framework. So not as definitive an update as maybe the other groups, because, you know, I was texting Tony afterwards and I was like, man, you know, the meeting was great because it invigorated us, but it's also challenging because now we go back to theory. And Tony was like, yeah, but that's a good thing because that gets our grounding under us. And so, I don't know. I like to know specifics on how to implement things. I'm not very good with theory. I'm action oriented. Olivia, did you want to share anything?
No, I think you covered it very well, Judah. Thank you. Everyone on the committee is really working hard. I really have great admiration for the leads at the different campuses. They are dedicated to their goal.
Yeah.
And do y'all have another meeting set up for this semester?
I don't. I don't have one scheduled. One kind of headway that we did make in our ad hoc meeting was we refined our definition of faculty student mentoring, and we came to what I think is going to be a very valuable definition for us to move forward with. Sorry about Atticus.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Excellent. Okay, then there are no recommendation updates at this time. There's no presentation at this time. Okay, so next on the agenda is survey. And I debated whether or not to share this with y'all. And then I decided I would because it's best that y'all see what I got. But please note on the slide here that there are issues with this data set. This data should not be used to inform decisions. For some reason, when I sent out the survey, evidently it only went to St. Philip's because the only results that we got were from St. Philip's College. So I don't know if this somehow got intertwined with my old ability as faculty senate president, maybe I clicked the wrong faculty distribution list and didn't realize I still had access to St. Philip's. I don't know, but we got 20 responses, 19 of which have heard of the EFC. And then we've got a table over here of how they've heard of the EFC, mostly through the faculty members or through faculty senate. Our guiding principles, engaging in shared governance. We got strong marks on moderately and strongly agree. That column to the far right is don't know or not enough info. Again, for building trust and respect, strong marks on moderately and strongly agree. Don't know, not enough info, a little bit more prevalent on that one. Establishing a culture of inclusive collaboration and communication. So we got pretty good on strongly agree on that one. Makes data informed decisions, which we did well on, except for those that don't know. Maintaining accountability through transparency and defined roles. Again, strong marks on moderately and strongly agree. And then how to submit communication to the EFC. There was a little bit more confusion about that. So that's something that we'll need to, or I'll need to work on. For the ad hoc awareness groups, this goes from not at all aware, slightly aware, somewhat aware, moderately, extremely, with the first being not at all aware. So you can see the results here. For all classes, that was the end of course student surveys phase 1. Then for the end of course surveys phase 2, not as many people were aware of this one. I imagine that's probably because it doesn't affect them as much if they're arts and sciences people as opposed to workforce people. Somewhat aware of the faculty evaluation and system. Tenure proposal, people seem to be aware of, which is good. And the faculty student mentoring model, not as much awareness out there, but again, it's a newer model and word just may not have had time to get around. So I can't tell you that data tells you anything because it was such a small sample size and because it was limited to St. Philip's College. So I'm going to check with Dr. Raley and see if I can send it out again. This time, make sure it goes out to all the colleges so that it was supposed to be done in March and the timeline that didn't happen or won't happen because of that. But we could at least get it done this semester and have the data for this semester.
And Cindy, yes, you can send it out again.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. That finishes up the agenda. Our next meeting is May the 14th at 10 a.m. So back to our regular time. That is during finals week. So I apologize. I know it's going to be a very busy week. We're going to have at least one presentation. So
Well, I'm sorry, since there are a few minutes left. Wait a second. So will we have a presentation? Because we may not, because we haven't run this past our faculty.
Okay, and we meet during the summer. So we meet once a month. The second, and the reason being, when this got established, the Senate presidents were overlapping in the summer. The outgoing Senate president worked their last summer, and the incoming Senate president worked their first summer. So back then, the presidents were working the summers.
Right.
But it's just
But we're not on
information.
12-month contracts.
No, there was
We're-
non-instructional pay, that there was a form to fill out.
Mhm.
the
No, I know,
hours.
we get that. It's just. Okay. I mean, I'll be
That was
here,
how we
so
got
it doesn't,
compensated.
it doesn't matter. Like, I'll be here, so it's fine. I was just curious because it's. Just because when we do this, it starts pushing Senate presidents more towards being on a 12-month contract, but
Yes, it
that's a
does.
conversation for another day. And
Yes, it is.
you'll have a hard time getting presidents if that becomes the case.
Right. So if that's going to be the case and there's not going to be a quorum here, then we can't vote. And you're right, we'd have to wait until fall. So,
Don't we avoid voting over the summer? That was my understanding. We just do business informational.
yeah,
That's what I thought.
isn't that what I just said?
And since
No, you
we're
said there wouldn't be a
consensus
quorum,
model,
wouldn't
we
be
don't
able-
really vote anyway.
Oh, okay.
So
We're
maybe
not
the-
allowed to vote in
Pardon?
summer? We're not allowed to vote in summer?
We don't vote typically we don't vote during summers.
Okay.
But I think
Because of
Aaron's
the off
question is,
contract.
do we need to prepare a presentation for next meeting? I guess that's what we're needing to know, right, Aaron? Are we
Well,
moving?
it's sort of contingent on our plan for faculty input because
Yes.
that as far as what I understand from our discussion a few moments ago, we need to do that first because we can't present to EFC and then go get faculty input. What if
Right.
it changes our report, our recommendations? So unless our communication to faculty is purely informational, which that's not the spirit of our thing. So we have a model, as Michael Lee points out. We should use our model. So if we,
Okay, so what parts of procedure are y'all changing?
We're not. I mean,
well,
we're
It
not
doesn't
changing
go through the
procedure
model.
right now.
we don't have explicit changes to procedure, but there are recommendations that would have implied changes to procedure for the tenure process at the least, because there's some changes to the probationary period. There are some changes to the tenure process, the decision, the tenure committee is slightly different. And then we have these recommendations to review and possibly change, but we don't have any specifics, the progressive discipline and termination policies. So I think those we don't really need to run by faculty, but certainly the changes to the tenure procedure would result, if they were approved, would result in changes to that specific procedure.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't know what to do. I feel kind of stuck here.
Okay, so we'll just put it on hold until we see what happens at the meeting this afternoon.
Can I ask a question? I know it's in these things, but before I go through and try to dig it, maybe ML can just answer quickly. Is there a period of time that we're required to give faculty to give their input? Because I know there's like this, I know there's a cycle and there's a time period. Is there a time period for that?
There's a faculty input model and
Yeah.
expedited.
That's what I'm asking. I'm asking if anyone just knows off the top of their head what that is, because the way it's, right, which means that puts us past the end of the semester.
Oh, God. Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say, ML? I was talking over you. I apologize.
I think the expedited process, we said a business week.
Okay.
So
Really? I thought okay. That's what
I think that's what the last one landed on. We should.
okay. Well, that's great.
Well,
work
I'm
on what-
wondering if Aaron and I and the ad hoc group are able to come to some sort of agreement about an executive summary, like just an executive summary, like if we could just send that out. It doesn't have to be an extensive full report or presentation. What do you think, Aaron?
I'm comfortable with that. I guess, there's the content of what we're sending. There's the feedback that we're requesting, and then there's the time frame for that to happen.
I see.
Sort of
Yeah,
three components, right?
yeah.
So if we agree that the executive summary and just a brief, sort of overview of what would be changed in procedure is fine, the input should be like, do you agree or yes or no? And comments,
Yeah.
And then we leave it at basically a week. And then there's the distribution method. So, it's in the input model, each faculty senate president is in charge of getting that together. Now we're proposing
could
something
do
like
that.
since we're in EFC all together, maybe we could agree on what it is and have it go through one outlet from the EFC fellow.
I think people are more likely to respond if it's coming from their
Yeah,
faculty.
and I
senate
think I
president.
would prefer to just do it each individually. So if we think we can do that, then I think we do it. But I don't, does it pass the, I think I want to run this by Michael Lee, having written the faculty input model, make sure it passes the smell test, because, we're
Oh,
gonna
ML
do
in the
this.
chat, 3 days.
3 days. Wow.
Wow. So
Really?
if we follow our process,
Well,
Okay.
I think we could leave it open for a week, which is what we've been doing for
Yeah.
for the procedures at MVC, and that's worked great. No one has had a negative comment about it being too short. So if we can just do that, leave it open a week, I think that we can have our presentation to EFC in 2 weeks. We're just going to have to sort of really
think
get
so.
that together quickly. Yes.
I think the thing about the model is it's longer because it's set up as if this is coming from an external group, and then how many days does the UFS have it, and then it goes to the Senate, and then it goes down and down. And so again, this is the learning process in knowing, like, we're gonna just focus on that one stage, which even in our standard process is only a week. To get it out to all faculty and back is 1 week, and then the UFS has additional time to process the report, and then
Yeah.
they deliver. So the length is about all the steps, not just the gathering feedback steps. So in some ways, it's quicker than we would have even imagined if we were looking at that.
That's
procedure.
real. I think that's great. And that might be something, if we look at the procedure again, that we write into that procedure. I don't want to go have another meeting. Actually, I kind of like the legal meetings where we're like writing policy. I think it's fun. But like, maybe it would make sense that, like, if the issue has gone through EFC, then automatically it's like an expedited deal, because, like you said, it's already sort of gone through some of the hurdles or the steps implicitly within the EFC process. So it's just a matter of that last step of, like, all faculty, blast, solicit feedback, digest the feedback, and move on. I like it.
Okay.
And
So
we
I've
can
got
try.
another
I
meeting I
can't
gotta
promise that
get
we can
to.
get ours done. So, but we'll try.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens for 2 weeks from now. I'll send the agenda after I know more details.
This is
Any
great.
last
This is a
comments for the good of
wonderful
the
group
group?
of people, I just like to say. And I like how we can disagree and, like, problem solve and come to something that I think we're all happy with. I'm happy with that. Sounds great to me. So thank you, everybody.
Thank y'all. Okay, have a good one. I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.